So, how are we going to deal with all this lot? Hello, and welcome back to Red Fox Classics and the other side of the GT6 bonnet. As you just had a little clip of, there's quite a bit of rot there. But we've got all the bits, it's going to be easier than the other side. So, let's take a closer look at it and start getting it sorted. So, while this all looks pretty manky, it's not too terrible because we've got that, and we've got that, and we've got this. And they're all relatively stable. So the first job is going to be to get the new D plate fitted to the edges that still exist. Now to start with, I want to put a little bit of reinforcement in to stabilise the bits that are going to be affected by cutting the D plate out. Pretty horrible rain there. And I think I'm going to repair the flat bit of this Wheelarch, or the flattish bit of this Wheelarch. Then I'm going to have something to actually temporarily fasten this to, the clecos or screws or whatever, when I start cutting out the bits around the edge, because all of that needs to be repaired, all of that, and probably most of this as well, because that's going to be rotten, and this is someone else's repair that's not quite in the right plane because it sort of kinks up, don't we? So first thing, let's have a bit of a clean up and probably make a section to go in there. So I've got that bit bent up and the flange for here folded. Now I need to trim it to that sort of shape, and I need to make a little cut because that bit's flat and that bit's flat, and I think the easiest way to make that fairly sharp bend is just going to be to put a little cut in here and then bend it probably over the T-dolly. Fit in there. So I'm going to want to trim, cut. I think I'll have to start this in the vise. So I need a further bend along that line, and this is actually a little, I've slipped it a bit further forward than what I intended, but it doesn't actually matter. And get this the right way, yeah, so bend in. That feels like it's pretty good. So take off a bit more. There's a bit of flex there. I'm going to put in a bit of reinforcement. So that should just stop it moving on us so easily. So got that lined up on there. Okay, so that's in. I'm going to throw a couple of tack it, probably just weld it. I'll weld it to here. I'm going to try and tack it at this end. But obviously this end there's going to be more work needed, particularly to attach it to that. And there's going to be a bit of repair further up the Wheelarch needed too. But I want to get this bit in because that's going to give us our D plate. And this crispy seam of the Wheelarch can be another day's problem. So that's in place. Obviously, you can see I have blown through a little bit, which may mean, well, the welder was a bit hot really because this is thick bit of metal. So there may be some more replacement required there too, but whatever. That's going to give us a platform to attach the D plate to. So that should be good. If we can extend that line, we'll check we extend that line when we remove this bit, clean all that off, clean the remains out from under here, and see how the new one sits. Because the new one sits just putting it over the top. It looks pretty good. So I'll get on and cut all this stuff out, and then we'll have a look and get the D plate sat in there and see how it goes. So that's all out. Annoyingly, this is detached from the Wheelarch, which means my bonnet hinge has moved ever so slightly. So I'm going to have to do more checking really. But we've got these edges cleaned up, so get the plate into. So let's have a look. So that corner's going to need to come off before we can get it in. I'd already cut a bit of this away, but it really doesn't fit. Well, the camera battery died while I was fiddling about, but it feels like it's clamping in okay. That's all a bit wobbly, but the angle of, you know, that pressing, or that lip and that angle was right beforehand. Comparing that measurement to what I've done on the other side is the same. I also noticed that repair is not a straight line down there. So I guess I'm going to have to cut all this out again at some point. Yeah, it's a difficult one to measure, but I've just tried to compare that around the wing to the bottom corner. That seems to be fine too. Well, these match. So I think let's get some Clecos in, get it back on the car, see how it looks there, and see how much that has definitely moved. That's one hinge tube, you can't see it touching. That definitely moved when I was cutting, but everything seems to line back up again, so don't know. So the bonnet's on. Things are interesting because this side looks nice, lines up with valance. This side is looking alright in terms of up and down here, but I'm not sure what's going on here, because the wing would flow down and meet the valance if there wasn't a great big hole in it. But the D plate is poking out. But there's not, see in here, not any wiggle room to move the D plate over. So I'm not sure what's going on here. Because the D plate either needs to move that way or twist. But it also seems to fit quite nicely in the hole that was available for it. It doesn't really feel like that's been massively pulled in or anything, or pushed in, rather. I best walk. Let's walk into the bench. Best walk around and measure some stuff and see if I can figure out where the differences are. Okay, so this is feeling better. This bit, if you recall, is not attached to anything at the rear end. So I've just shoved it in a bit so the D plate will fit, and that corner was lining up with the kind of straight line down on the edge of that curve. It's overhanging now a little bit, but it's enough that it could be trimmed if we wanted to make it that line. It doesn't seem too terrible. So I just got on with the clamp. We've possibly got some sorting out to do here. It looks like it's a bit tighter in that corner. Well, that's okay. A little bit bigger under here. Actually, quite a lot bigger under here. There's definitely room at the front to make it do that, but not really at the back. I'm going to have more play with this. So I've done a bit of adjustment on this bracket and managed to pop this side of the bonnet up a little bit, and I think I'm happy with this. So you can see there that I've got the D plate lining up with the edge of my little repair section. That seems to be about as far in as I can get it to go. I think that's reasonable, because it might need a little trim now, but it's, yeah, how much? Don't know, a couple of mil, which I think we can cope with. But all that section can be built to valance. So I'll make sure that's secured in place and then get the bonnet off again. Probably pop in some more Cleco holes since none of these line up anymore. So bonnet's off the car again. I've been back and forth and drilled some new holes and then drilled some more new holes. But I think we're probably in a good place now. I'm kind of following this wing down. It's not terribly far off. So I think we manage with it. I've also taken a bit of, just a bit of wood, a bit of straight wood, and laying it over between these two D plates, which is what I was doing when making that one, or dealing with that end, just to check that they are sitting in the same plane, which they are. So I think it's going to have to be another time on the chassis, just to do that last check, and then this is the final place, and you can come in here and start to stabilise stuff. I feel like what's going to be the best thing to do is make this little corner, because then we put that in, then attach this to it to stop that section moving around. Yeah, let's aim for that. I should, somewhere in this pile, already have a little template for it, because I made that one. So another quick test of the bonnet on the chassis, and I ended up loosening that bolt and shoving the valance down a little bit, and that got, well, that got me the ability to have this in the place I put it based on that, or that side, and a decent gap with valance. So this is now good, finally. So those are going to be my guide holes for the rest of it. Yeah, maybe more than the rest of it. Anyway, as I was saying before, I'm going to make this bit. Okay, so I've lost my template, but I've got the old bit from the driver's side. See, and you can see we've got a bit of a bend there to meet up with the D plate. We've got a bit of a bend across there. I think this is why this is a separate piece, because it's sort of a weird shape compared to the rest of it. And then we've obviously got this curve, and what I flattened out previously, that's the flange that connects to the other half of the wheel arch. So I should be able to use this paper, make myself a pattern here. Okay, and my bend is there. I think that's probably going to be something I will make on the car, or on the other panel. Still going to mark it because it may come in handy. I'm going to straighten up that edge. And let's get this cut out and turn it into a bit of metal. Actually, all this is paper from somewhere, like an Amazon delivery, something like an Amazon delivery that I've then ironed. So in this case, I'm just going to cut myself a rectangle, mark the thing out, and then cut it on the shear. Now this is called a throatless shear, and is one of the few like special metalworking tools I've got. You can quite easily do this sort of thing with a grinder. It's just I rather like this. It's just got, it's easy to be accurate. Do in general quite like to use hand tools if I can. Or where it's possible. More so with woodwork. So I'm going to need to do a little tidy. So now I'm just going to go over to the metal folder and put in these two very slight bends. Then we'll be able to flatten them out on this piece and try and bend that around the corner. Obviously got to make sure I do these backwards. So I can get a fold in there. Show me where those should go. I actually do want to mark on this side for that fold, because when I fold the new piece, it's going to be held there, bent upwards there. Give me the opposite of that. This is raised, so just on the other side for this fold, because this fold comes slightly forward, so it wants to go slightly backwards for this piece. So, like that. Matching up okay. This one's a little sharp, but hand will take care of that. So now they match up okay. Bear in mind this is a little battered, and we'll have to fit it to the Wheelarch anyway. Now, this bit's flat, so we want to smooth out the creases just here, on the edge of the bench. Now to get that curve bending. What I'm going to use for that is this not particularly good pipe mangle. So I'm going to stick it in that gap and then I should be able to bend it round. I'm going to do that off camera though, because getting in here is not conducive to filming, I'm afraid. Eventually we'll move GT6 and be a bit easier. So my first go, that end's alright. Yeah, this needs to tweak back a bit, but the curve is in the right place. That end, not really. It needs to come around a little bit. So just overusing that, or the round tube as a dolly, I'm just able to bring it round a little bit, which is working out okay so far. Right, I think it's good enough to see what it looks like on here, but first I need to get this wrinkle out of there. And that's reasonable. So bent's going to be, if we already taught, I know. So I think that cut is pretty dead on. In there, but we are poking out a lot, so it's looking like it will come out about where I marked it, so what can we do? So that kicks it a bit, but I think we just wouldn't get. I think I'm just going to pull this off as well as I can. So it's most of that bit out, and that edge is actually looking like it might be okay just to use. So I'm going to come in and give that bit of a clean up and see how we look. Also, I chopped that little corner off. We'll keep it for later. Because it's going to let me get in here a bit better. Now, yeah, that's actually cleaned up really nicely, and bent my flange up. So I cut it there so I could bend the two bits separately. And having looked around here, I'm not entirely sure what had a flange and what didn't, but this is getting one, so obviously this is getting replaced later on. Look at that. Feels like it's going to sit in there quite nicely, so I'm going to get a bit of paint on things. And that curve needs to flatten a bit in there, so I'll see if I can do that. Okay, so I've struggled to get this little bit of corner to fit, but I think I'm going to get some rust killer and then primer on it and work on it on the car, or on the panel. So I've got primer on this, and we can get it in. Actually, what I want to do is get that in, don't I? being the whole point of doing all this work. The clicos and such, just to make sure we get that line up. And now neither you nor I are going to be able to see really what's going on, but at least we'll be lined up. Okay, and that immediately says my bend there needs to be a little sharper. Right, I'll play with this a bit more, because it's not going to be very exciting to watch, especially as you can't even see in here. Okay, so I've got this sitting in. I had to do a bit more manipulation. I had to increase the angle of this bend and of this bend, and then it started to sit much more nicely. So what I'm going to do now is weld it. Now I'm going to have to clean up. Clean the paint off here, and then get a couple of plug welds in. Well, that's in. Don't look too closely at the welds, because I was doing it upside down, and yeah, they're not prettiest. However, they will clean up, and I'll be able to do better when the bonnet's in a different orientation. So, next job is to stick the D plate back in, and then do something in the... Well, that's that next thing, because I could do that. Do that. And I'm wondering if I just get rid of this oval hole, because the purpose of it, I'm pretty sure, was just to enable a spot weld to come through. I just had a little clean up here to see how bad it was in the middle. It's not bad. It is bad around the edges though. So I'd have to make that, all of that, all that up in there. And I think these are like 20 quid, 30 quid. So I probably should just get another one, really, because that's days it's going to take me, because they're all little complicated shapes. If I can leave that alone for the moment, I might just weld some stabilisation between there and there, because I do want to be able to take this bonnet hinge off, because in a couple of days this is going to go off and get sandblasted, and I'd like it to be possible to take it apart, or to take these bits off, so that everything underneath them can get clean as well. And at the moment this is what's holding this in place, because there's nothing there. So yeah, let's do that, and then maybe I'll make a strip of this Wheelarch just to replace some of this manky bit. So and just chuck a bit of fiberglass over that and be alright, wouldn't it? Anyway, that should at least keep this in the right place, and let that hinge tube come off without, while this is in, and shouldn't terribly destabilise the structure. So what I'm going to do now is probably going to come inside the Wheelarch, stick a bit of tape on, maybe, how far do we want to go? Probably over right there. To chop out that section and just make a new one on the front stretcher. There's a hole, and I started cutting on the wrong bit of tape, but that'll weld up. So this flange actually get cleaned up quite nicely. It's possible I didn't even need to bother going this far up, but there you with it gone. There's some quite, relatively heavy rust on the back of that, so I thought it was worth cutting away and front. So I had best get myself a bit of metal cut. So it's going to be a case of flat bit, bend a flange, little one, and then shrink a stretcher to actually make shape. And obviously the bit of metal I need is the width of this bit of tape plus flange. This is bigger than I'm going to need, but it's going to be easier to fit into the jaws of the shrinker stretchers. Okay, so the first thing I've done this morning is gone and stuck this bit of cardboard through the hole I've cut and traced out the curve of the panel. So I got myself a sweep, and I can just come on the bench and start manipulating this to fit. And that's going to go that way round, so we need to make this fit on here. And actually that bit, so this bit, is straight up until it starts to curve there. So that is a little bit easier, or it's worth bearing in mind. We'll start off at least mark there where it stops being straight. Then I've got that little bit of curve, which will require stretching here, and then this little bit here, which will require shrinking to bend it that way. So I'm going to start off trying to get that gentle curve there. And because I've got quite a lot of metal on this side, we're going to get this edge will bend to the shape, and then we're going to have to help the outer edge along a little bit, but it will want to conform, or it'll be less difficult to manipulate because it's just flat shooting there. See, we're looking okay at the rear there. So we've got to start keep a bit more there. And there's nothing really magic to making bits like this. It really is. You make a little change, and then you see how that affected your piece, and then you do it again until it's right. And the nice thing about metal is, if you don't like it, you can usually go backwards. And undo what you've done. So that's quite nice for the curve we've had to stretch. So now I'm going to come in here and shrink to bring that reverse curve. Because this is really relatively sharp, I'm not moving the jaws very much, or not moving the point where I'm using the tool very much, because we really want it to get right in there. So anyway, that looks alright based on the cardboard. But you see the curve here is a little bit off. You might be able to see it on the edge of the panel there as well, on the edge of the piece. So I should just be able to encourage that out a little bit. Okay, just had a look on the car, and that edge is nice. I'm happy with that. So it's just going to be a case of making the sheet metal bit of it agree a bit more. So you see, the bottom as we're looking at is good. I've just managed to bend that edge a little bit in the wrong way. Unfortunately that was a flat bit, so just making it a bit flatterer. Then we can try and pop it in here and see what it is. There's where it sits nicely with the curve of the wheel arch. You might be able to see it's catching on some random bits of flange, so you can start to trim up. So I just mark that end. That's where the biggest overlap is. So that's in place there. And I can now go underneath and just mark along here where I can trim. I might need to trim a bit at the back actually. But you get the idea. We've got the shape. Fits nicely with this. So it's just a case of getting into the hole. So I got that bit clamped in. Just about see it in there. I'm hoping once I take the D plate off again I'm going to be able to get in and do these plug welds, but it's feeling like it might be hard. But we will manage something. So I'd best get that welded. So this is in. It's proved quite a pain. It proved to be quite a pain to weld. That, as you can see, those are horrible welds, and even on as low as I could get the welder to go and still actually work, I was blowing through. So this is clearly relatively thin. Anyway, I have to get this ground, and what I'm going to do along there is just we want the grinder along the top, so we bring the level of the repair piece down. Well, this side's repair piece down to match the other. So I'm now talking to you from the future because, as you may notice, the car has moved. But I need to record a different ending for this video because I needed to split up some of the footage because otherwise we would end up getting a bit too long, and I didn't want to do that. So we've got the first bits of wheel arch repair done to the left hand side of the bonnet, got the D plate fitted and happy with that. And the bonnet now has actually gone off to be sandblasted, hence doing all the stuff. But when that's back, we'll be able to get in and finish off those areas and start to look at the outer wing and what we're going to do there. So thank you all for watching. If you got this far into the video and you're not yet subscribed, please consider doing so because it really will help me out. We're currently at 15 subscribers off of monetization, and that would be quite nice. I'm sure it's not going to make me a millionaire, but it'd be nice to have something. If you want to support the channel in another way, there are stickers available in the shop right now. Thank you everyone who already is subscribed and regular viewers generally, and I'll see you next time.